Okay, so my name is Benjamin. I run a marketing company called Patronum, and I help businesses get more leads with social media. But I don't really want to talk about myself. I want to talk about how you guys can improve your sales. And this is a framework that I actually didn't develop, but I've used in my business many times. It's called the Closer Framework, and it's a simple conversation make sales easy. But before I get into that, there's a couple reasons why people don't like sales. A lot of people feel sales is awkward or weird. With the whole used car sales, no one wants to rip off a grandma for $15K. That feels bad, and that's not what we're advocating for today. And then a lot of people feel panic when objections come up. People are like, oh, this is too expensive, or I'm not sure this is the right time. And then you feel that dropping, sinking sensation in your stomach. You're like, oh, what do I do? And that's another reason why people like to avoid sales. What ends up happening a lot of the times is that people start avoiding sales conversations altogether because they don't want to experience rejection, or they don't want to hear no's, or it's just not a comfortable situation. So the goal of today is how can we shift sales from being challenging or hard to easy, and having easy conversations with the prospects that you're talking to, know exactly how to handle objections, and growing your business and helping more people while learning the very useful skill of sales. Anyone who's successful in business needs to know how to sell a little bit. And so one way to think about sales is thinking about it as a journey from A to B. Right? And so point A is where your prospect is at right now. There's a reason why they're talking to you. They're not just for fun. Maybe you're catching up, but likely there's an issue that they have, and they may or may not be aware of that. And so it's your job to help guide them on the journey of where they are today to the point B, which is the future gain. Like, where do they want to be in the future? What outcome are they looking for? What transformation are they hoping to get by working with you or your business? And so this is a good roadmap to think about. Instead of trying to push someone into a decision, you're helping guide them on their journey to help them get the outcome that they're looking for. And also, I'll say, if you can't help them, say that. Like, if you're not the right fit, just say, I'm not the right fit for you. Let me refer you to someone else. Let me make some introductions. And that takes a whole lot of pressure off, because you don't need to close every sale. You want to make sure that you're working with the right people. So anyways, getting into what does Closer stand for, it's an acronym. Clarify why the person is there, label them with a problem, overview their past pains, you sell the vacation. I don't like the word sell there, but that's how you make it the Closer framework. So explain away concerns and then reinforce the decision. And if you guys want to take some notes, I'll just leave it on here for a second. I'll come back to this later. Did everyone get that? Okay. Oh, awesome. Okay, so clarify why they're there. The very first thing you want to do whenever you jump into a sales conversation is say, hey, what made you hop on the call today? Or hey, why did you decide to come in? Or what prompted you to reach out? A lot of times people think that they know what the issue is before talking to the prospect. They're like, oh, I know, you want this thing or you want that. You don't want to assume anything. You want to ask, hey, what prompted you to reach out? And so instead of assuming something and being wrong and then having to go back and forth, you just let the prospect tell you what's going on. Pretty simple. This shouldn't take more than like 15 to 20 seconds, but it's a good starting point. Get started on the right foot. Second step is label. You want to label them with a problem. So like, yeah, I came in today and I'm looking to get help with my marketing, or I need to get help with my ego. My therapy hasn't been working out and I want help with that. And so then you want to restate in your own words what they just told you. Hey, it looks like you're looking to get some help with your ego and removing that from your sales process. Is that right? And then if you get, yes, that's right, or yep, something like that, an affirmative, now you're on the same team. Now you guys are moving in the same direction. It's no longer you and them. You're on the same page. Cool. Now you can move on to this is like the juiciest part of the process, is the overview of past pain. And this is where sometimes people get uncomfortable because they don't want to talk about pain. They don't want to go into the past. But this is actually really important, because if you remember the point A to point B, until people understand where they are, like what they've tried in the past, what issues they've faced, a lot of people haven't actually gone through this exercise of, I tried to do therapy in the past, it didn't work. I tried to get coaching and that didn't work. A lot of times people haven't actually unpacked that for themselves. And so you get to have an opportunity to help them understand where they are. And so you can ask questions like, so what have you tried to get help with your sales process in the past? What did you like about what you did? What did you not like about what you did? What were the results like for you? And when you ask these questions, you're not pitching anything. You're not trying to push anything. You're just getting a sense of where they're at and what their needs are. Because until you have this information, you can't actually help someone. There's a good thing to keep in the back of your mind is that good sales is like being a good doctor. Like a doctor who just pushes pills or prescribes stuff without understanding what your core issue is, that's malpractice, right? And so the best thing you can do is understand where people are coming from, understand what's going on before you say anything. Because until that point, you're not really sure if you can or can't help them. And so the goal is to reflect on what the person has tried and the impact of that. And you can ask things about what is the effect of not getting help with this? What has that been on your finances? What has that been on your time? A lot of people in my industry, they waste a lot of time posting on social media or running ads that don't go anywhere. And so that's a negative consequence that most people don't want to just waste money on advertising that doesn't work. And so getting clear on that is super, super important. And then after you've done your due diligence here, you understand where they're coming from and what they need, you can get to describing their ideal scenario. So again, we're going from point A, the pain, the past situation, into point B, which is their desired outcome. After you've understood what people's issues are, you can actually ask them, what would you like? If these past things you've tried, the past coaching, the past results haven't been good, what would you like to see? What would you like to have in your ideal scenario? What kind of revenue would you like to be making? What kind of time would you like to be spending with your family? And once you have that, then you can build a path. I like to have 3 pillars, 3 steps for them to go from point A, 1, 2, 3 to point B in your process. And these 3 pillars can be anything for your business. I like to have 3 just because it's easier for people to understand. And you really don't want to spend too much time on talking about your process. You want to make it really simple. And so for me, for my marketing system, the 3 pillars are essentially attention, authority, and alignment. So you want to get attention for your brand so the right people are seeing what you have. You want to build authority to become a trusted figure and an expert in your field. And you want to attract people who are aligned with your business. Those are your 3 pillars to get from struggling to get leads, struggling to make social media work for you, to getting predictable, consistent leads because you have these 3 pillars in place. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, and you don't want to spend a lot of time on that either. And this is a mistake that I feel a lot of people in sales can get into, is they pitch for 10 minutes and they're just like, and it does this thing, and it has all these different features, and oh, I didn't even tell you about this other thing. Most people don't really care about the super nitty-gritty details. They will ask if they care, but a lot of times they just want to know high level, how is this going to take me from where I am today to my desired result? Also, metaphors are really good too. If you have kind of like analogies that you can throw into your pillars to break it down to make it even more simple, that can help too. After you explain what you have, what your service is, and how it will help them go from point A to point B, this is where typically you'll get objections. You'll get people who are like, I don't know if it's the right time. Is this really worth it? Do I have the budget? I'm not sure. And so this is a quick thing I'll say before, is if you do enough discovery, if you ask the right questions here, you can actually prevent a lot of objections from coming up in this section. But let's assume that objections do come up. The most common one people are probably getting is price. I think this is too much. And so with price, with any kind of objection, I have a little ABC framework I like to use, which is, before I get into that, what belief is triggering this objection? Because a lot of people are like, oh, it's too expensive. What if I give it to you for 50% off? If you go there, you're toast, because you don't actually know if it's price. A lot of people say things like price or, oh, it's not the right time, but it's your job to diagnose what exactly do they mean by that. And so what I like to think of is what belief is triggering this objection. So if someone's like, hey, this is too expensive, number one, I want to acknowledge. I want to say totally get it. That makes sense. Second thing is price aside, let's say this was free. Would you, that process we just described, those 3 pillars, would you do that? And a lot of times people are like, yeah, I would do it. And then I could ask, what did you like about that? I like that in the past I've posted and no one actually looks at my content, and it sounds like your process of getting attention and building authority, it sounds like that would work for me. Cool, so then you get back on the same page. Instead of, and the thing that a lot of people do is, it's not that much. Or, are you sure you don't have money? You don't want to get into an argument. That's absolutely the wrong thing to do. You want to acknowledge and then double check to make sure you're on the same page as far as belief in the product. They could say, I don't believe that it's going to work for me, and that's a totally different discussion. It's not actually price. It's I don't actually believe that these pillars are going to work. How is getting more attention going to help me? And then you can talk about that issue instead of saying, oh, what if I give you 50% off? Then it goes into clarify. You clarify what's the underlying belief, and you determine, is this a logistical issue or is it an emotional block? And so you can ask questions like, is this an issue where you just don't have the funds right now, or is there another concern that you have about the product? Is there something else that you're not fully confident about? And you want to get a good sense of what that is. And so assuming you've handled all the objections, you've gone through the acknowledge, look at what the belief in the product is, and then clarify, then you can get into reinforcing the decision. Congrats, you have now closed the sale. The best thing you can do is to basically outline an action plan of, hey, here's what's going to happen next. I'm going to give you some homework. We'll set up your onboarding call, and we'll get you to your rep who's going to represent you. Whatever your plan is, make sure that you're not just like, hey, we closed the sale, see ya. That's just a terrible experience for people. So you want to have a clear plan in place and reinforce, hey, this is a good decision. We'll take care of you. Let's get you started. And so that's the closer framework. Again, you're on a journey. You're taking people from point A, their past pain, to what they're looking for, their ideal scenario. And you are the guide. You're the one who can help get them from that point. Like a guide up a mountain, it can be difficult. There's obstacles. But if you're on the same page and you're able to help people get to that point, you can actually be of service instead of like pushy or like used car sales or that sort of a deal. And so that's the framework that I've used. Do you guys have any questions on that? Yeah, Edsel?
So what are some of the, like how would you overcome that objection of price?
That's a great question, by the way. And so that's the first thing is like acknowledge them. Or if they have a price issue, you say, totally appreciate that. Thanks for bringing that up, number one. And then number two is thinking about your product as an investment, right? If they're losing $1,000 a month due to overpaying on insurance, they're paying that price, right? Like they're paying over $1,000 more than they should be. And so helping your prospect see what is the true cost. Prices and expenses are relative. Imagine if you got a $5,000 house, that's cheap. Imagine if you paid $5,000 for a dinner, that's expensive. So it's relative to the value, right? And so helping your prospects see what is the actual value that I'm getting here, as opposed to getting really stuck on, oh, this is too much, like in comparison to what exactly? If you look at the overview of past pain, if you're like, so what are you currently paying for insurance? They're like, I'm paying all this money. And like, well, we have a better price. And let's say your price is more. What value are you getting for that? If you do get in a car accident, you'll get XYZ. And currently with your current insurance, you're getting nothing. Like you'll have to pay all of that out of pocket. I look at value. A lot of price objections are actually about value or fear. They're like, I don't know if you're the right person or your process is actually going to work for me. And so it's figuring out what's behind the question, as opposed to like, we can get you like a 50% off or something like that. That's not really doing them the service of getting to the root of the problem. Does that kind of answer your question? Yeah, so I'm Benjamin. I started doing digital marketing back in 2020. Some of the clients that I work with are Nas Daily, Kinobody, SarahBethYoga, Pacific Rim Athletics. And so those are founder-led influencer kind of brands where they had lots of social media followers. Their biggest challenge was converting their followers into actual sales. So that was the interesting issue, is that they had a huge following. They had the attention aspect really well sorted out. So lots of followers, lots of subscribers, but they didn't have a good system to convert that attention into authority to basically be a trusted advisor in the space and then convert that into aligned customers. They did have a little bit of the authority because people were looking to them for help, but they didn't have a system in place. And so my system of getting attention, authority, and alignment is basically, what content do you need? What system do you have in place to cash in on your attention? And then how do you make sure that you close customers for whatever their offer is? SarahBethYoga had a yoga app. We got basically doubled her subscribers by putting this system in place.
To what extent do you feel that you get to yes or no quickly?
That is a great question. And I agree with you as well, because if you're not getting to the root of the problem, you're not really able to help them. And that could also be something that you say is like, look, man, like I don't know like why we're here right now. What are we doing here? I can't help you unless I know what's going on. And so you could just be upfront. I feel like when I've gone through this process, if you've gone through clarifying why they're here, labeling them with the problem and overviewing past pain, that kind of moves you in the right direction. You're on the right track. But if people aren't being honest with you, you can literally just call them out. Look, it doesn't seem like you really want to be here. Do you really need help? Like, how serious are you about this? Is this actually an issue? So that's how I might call it out.
Really need help.
Yeah, do you really need help? And just be honest. If it's not a good fit, I don't want to waste your time. And you want to be upfront with that. You want to feel it out. Is it that they're not like trusting you? Is it that they're like scared for some reason? And trying to isolate what that is. What's holding them back? Or you could even say, sounds like, is there something, like, have you been burned before?